It was Monday, 2 p.m. Central. The city didn't care if you were ready. Rain fell like it was trying to wash the blood off the sidewalks, but it never did a good job. Neon signs flickered in every window, red, blue, sickly green, painting the wet pavement with colors that lied to you about safety. Goku D'Angelo sat in the back of La Tavola Nera, a long table laid out like a Last Supper. He was the king of nothing, holding on to everything with white-knuckled fists. His crew sat around him, restless, paranoid. Someone was leaking to the feds. He tapped his cigar, let the ash fall. "I don't care who it is," he said. "I'm gonna find you, and when I do, I'll make your own mother spit on your grave." Meanwhile, Bambi Palermo watched the rain outside from under her umbrella. She lit a cigarette, watching the smoke curl up and vanish. "You family, that's the word everyone loves to say," she muttered. "But family will slit your throat if it keeps them breathing." She wasn't wrong. Across town, Agent Lopez sat in his unmarked car, stakeout coffee gone cold. He checked his badge, then the pistol on the seat beside him. "I don't know why I'm protecting her," he whispered to himself. "She's one of them." But he did know, and that was the problem. By 2 p.m. Central, the streets were alive with deals gone sideways, whispers in dark alleys, and the slow, inevitable fall of empires built on blood. Because in Neon Noir, there's no happy endings, just new beginnings, new deaths, new bodies. And every Monday you get a front row seat. Mondays, 2 p.m. Central, Neon Noir, Season 1. Family, loyalty, betrayal, blood. Don't miss it.
Sleeping Beauty, Waking the Asset, A Twisted Tale. Once upon a time, in a kingdom run like a corrupt city hall in Jersey, there was a princess named Aurora. But nobody called her that. They called her the Asset. Her father, the king, was a brutal racketeer in royal robes. He built alliances by cutting off fingers and sending them to rivals in gilded envelopes. When Aurora was born, he invited every crooked noble to the christening, except one. The one he stiffed? Mistress Malefica, a witch with a rap sheet longer than the FDR at rush hour. She didn't RSVP with regrets. Nah, she crashed the joint. She walked in with a smirk that'd make Tony Soprano sweat. She raised her glass and said, "May your lovely little asset prick her finger on a spindle and bleed out. But let's be sporting. She'll sleep instead, forever, until some asshole kisses her, or tries. Good luck, Your Majesty." The place went dead quiet. The king tried to have her whacked. Big mistake. His men wound up as crow food. The king was desperate. He put out word to every wise woman in the land, "Fix this." One said, "I can tweak it. She'll sleep for 100 years, then wake up with true love's kiss. But you can't avoid the sleep." The king was like, 100 years, fugged about it. But he had no choice. He banned spinning wheels like they were heroin, had 'em all burned in the street. Aurora grew up in lockdown like some princess in the witness protection program. But she was bored, rebellious, sharp-tongued. She snuck out. She found a hidden old spinning wheel in the tunnels under the castle, left behind by some idiot who liked knitting in the dark like a psycho. She touched it, pricked her finger, and down she went. Boom! Out cold. Here's where it gets really fucked up. The king didn't want to admit she was under the curse, so he told the kingdom she died. He sealed her in a glass coffin like a museum exhibit, posted guards, and started a rumor she'd been poisoned by foreign enemies. Political propaganda at its finest. He declared war on neighboring kingdoms, started burning villages, all in her name. Meanwhile, Aurora was alive but dreaming, and in those dreams she saw the bodies piling up. She heard her father's speeches. She saw the bloodshed he caused to avenge her. She screamed in her sleep, but nobody could hear her. 100 years later, the kingdom was a smoking ruin. The royal line was a joke. The people were starving. A stranger arrived, a prince. Sure, technically, but this guy wasn't noble. He was a bandit in stolen armor. His crew of mercenaries wanted the gold inside the sealed crypt. He found Aurora in her glass coffin. He didn't care about true love. He wanted to loot the tomb, but he saw her perfect, untouched, unrotted. And being the creep he was, he kissed her. Aurora woke up screaming. She sat up, coughing dust, smelling the rot of a century's ruin. She looked at this filthy bastard leaning over her. She realized this was true love's kiss. Her destiny was to wake up and see her kingdom burn to ash, her father's crimes laid bare, and be bound to some scumbag grave robber who didn't even know her name. She didn't accept it. She killed him, took his dagger, slit his throat right there in the crypt while he gurgled. She staggered out of the tomb, covered in blood. Outside, the land was black with ash, the sun blocked by smoke. She walked alone through the ruins of her kingdom. She found what was left of her father's throne room and sat down. And she smiled, because she wasn't asleep anymore, and she was going to make sure the world paid for waking her up. Moral of the story? Don't tell a girl she's an asset. Don't try to lock her away. Don't assume she'll thank you for your kiss. And don't wake what you can't control. The real Cinderella. Ashes to ashes, blood to glass. Once upon a time, in a kingdom where smiles were currency and silence was survival, there lived a girl named Ella. Not Cinderella. That name, that lie, came later, when the fairy tales were sold to little girls and royalty needed good PR. Ella lived in a house that stank of mildew, locked windows, and lavender-scented rot. After her mother's funeral, her father, too drunk on grief or gin, no one ever figured out which, remarried a woman with the voice of a harp and the heart of a wasp. Lady Genevieve and her two porcelain doll daughters arrived like termites, smiling, painted, and quietly hungry. By winter, Ella's name was forgotten. They called her Cinder Wench for the soot under her fingernails, Ash Girl for how she slept by the hearth. She was 13 when her father fell off the roof. The roof was flat. The death was ruled a divine accident. But Ella heard the creak of boots that night, 3 sets. And so the girl with burn-scarred hands and calloused feet did the chores. She cleaned bloodstains no one explained. She sharpened knives she wasn't allowed to use. She smiled when commanded. Because Ella had learned, girls who cry disappear, and girls who obey live another day. But she didn't plan to obey forever. Years passed, and the prince announced a royal ball. Rumors swirled of a curse on the crown, how his lovers died in their sleep, lips blue as bruises, eyes wide with fear. But what did that matter? The girls still flocked. Hunger for a man with power outweighs rumors of death. Ella's stepsisters shrieked in glee, fitting into corsets like snakes into bottles. Ella asked if she might attend. Lady Genevieve laughed. You? You'd shatter the mirrors, dear. The prince wants a lady, not a corpse in rags. So Ella smiled and said nothing, just like always. Then she went to the cellar. Down there in the dark, where her father used to whisper lullabies and now only rats lingered, Ella opened the iron-bound trunk. Inside was her mother's dress, black lace, moth-eaten, but elegant in a way that made the candles flicker like they were scared. She slit her palm and whispered her mother's name, Liliane. The shadows moved, the dress rose. Something old and forgotten slipped into the room. "Do you want to be free, child?" the voice asked, not with words but with cold breath and a stench like wilted roses. Ella didn't flinch. "Make me unforgettable." When she stepped into the ballroom, everything stopped. Her dress was midnight and oil slick, her hair coiled like smoke. The prince, pale and smiling too wide, grabbed her hand and whispered, "You smell like death. I like that." They danced. He didn't blink. She didn't breathe. At midnight, the magic waned. The hem of her dress was crawling with worms. Her shoes, glass, sharp and biting, cut her with every step. But she didn't stop. Pain was familiar. Pain was home. Then she ran, as if on cue, because curses need drama. She left the slipper, of course. She also left something else in his pocket. A shard of mirror, tainted with her blood, and her mother's. The next week he came, crown on his head, slipper in hand, smile sharp enough to cut bone. He tried the shoe on Genevieve, too small. Tried it on the daughters. One chopped her toes, the other her heel. The shoe drank it all. Then he found Ella in the cellar. She didn't greet him, just stared. "You're the one," he whispered, licking his lips. "No," she said, standing tall, blood dripping from her cracked heel. "I'm the end." The slipper shattered in his hands, slicing his throat. As he gurgled, she took the crown from his dying fingers. Lady Genevieve was found hanging from the rafters, eyes plucked out. The sisters vanished. Some say they wander the woods barefoot, sobbing, shoes nailed to their hands. As for Ella, she ruled for a time, a queen with no king, a girl with cinders in her smile and revenge in her bones. They still call her Cinderella, but only because Ash Queen terrifies children. And the real story? It don't end with happily ever after. It ends with silence and the sound of glass cracking. Once upon a midnight fog, deep in the ash-black woods of Carcassa pines, there was no gentle fawn, no wide-eyed, doe-footed innocence scampering through the forest. Nah, forget what Disney sold ya. This Bambi was vengeance on 4 legs with antlers like daggers and eyes colder than a taxman in December. They killed his mother in the spring. They came with rifles, piss-stained camo, and beer breath, stomping through sacred trees like they owned the joint. Bambi watched it all, watched her fall, her legs twitching in the underbrush, breath rattling like dry leaves. His heart shattered in that moment, and from that shattered heart, a monster was born. He didn't run. He remembered. By winter, Bambi wasn't grazing in flower fields no more. He was sharpening his antlers on gravestones. The squirrels whispered about him like ghost stories. The owls stopped hooting at night. Even the wolves kept their distance, 'cause something new prowled the woods now, something personal. One by one, the hunters returned. But this time, Bambi was ready. Frankie, buckshot. Miller never made it to his tree stand. They found his body strung upside down like a butchered pig, guts missing, eyes gouged out. A single word was carved into his chest: Mother. Next came Bo Jenkins, who thought he was a real tough guy, posting selfies with dead deer online. He went missing after bragging about bagging Bambi's cousin. His jaw was found nailed to a pine tree, tongue still wagging. The forest turned quiet, too quiet. Hunters started whispering about the devil deer. They said he walked on two legs at night, that he stared into your soul like he knew your sins. Some said he had antlers made of bone and steel, welded from the traps that once maimed his kin. Then came the final one, Ray Dalton. He was the one who pulled the trigger on Bambi's mother. Bambi waited till Ray lit his campfire, warm and proud, surrounded by the trophies of his kills. That's when the flames went out, and the woods came alive with glowing red eyes. Ray tried to run, but Bambi stalked him, not fast, slow, like a judge walking to the bench, like death on a Sunday morning. When they found Ray's cabin days later, the walls were painted in blood, antlers through the door, and hanging above the fireplace like a twisted Christmas wreath was Ray's severed head, with his hunting license stapled to his forehead. Now they say Bambi's still out there. You go into them woods with a rifle, you better be ready to answer for every bullet you ever fired, 'cause Bambi ain't prey no more. He's the last thing you see before the woods go silent forever. And let me tell you, sweetheart, the hunter becomes the hunted. Moral of the story: don't fuck with nature, especially if nature's got antlers and a vendetta. You step into someone else's home with a gun, acting like God. Don't be surprised when God sends a deer with a hit list. Bambi ain't just some cute woodland creature anymore. He's what happens when you push too far, take too much, and forget that even the hunted can grow fangs. So the real moral? Every bullet's got a return address.
From the fiery depths of downtown damnation, it's the cigarette of choice for the morally bankrupt and fashionably doomed Lucifer menthols. When life burns you down, light one up, now with 100% more guilt and 20% less lung capacity. Smooth, baby, it's sin in stick form. Warning: may cause existential dread, smoky eye perfection, and spontaneous deals with demons. Not FDA approved, but definitely endorsed by your local Lucifer menthols, the devils in the drawer.
Once upon a time, but not the kind you tell at bedtime, there was a girl they called Snow White, not because she was pure or sweet or angelic, but because she was pale, sickly pale. The kind of pale that comes from working in the mines without sunlight. Her skin was chalked with coal dust, her lungs ached, and her lips were stained from chewing bitter root to stay awake. She wasn't born into royalty. No, that was a fable. She was sold. Her stepmother wasn't wicked. She was efficient. Ran a labor ring in the Black Forest, supplying pretty young girls to shadowy men with gold teeth and sharper knives. When Snow White turned 13, the mirror on the wall whispered, "She's ripe." That was enough to get her shipped off. The forest wasn't enchanted. It was industrial. Buried deep in the hills were 7 bunkers, each one manned by a so-called dwarf. That's what the syndicate called them. A cruel little nickname for the 7 men too scarred, too violent, or too twisted to function among real people. They were freaks of habit and vice, and she was their house girl. She cooked their slop, washed their bloodied overalls, picked glass shards out of their socks, and slept in a room where the lock was always on their side. They called it a cottage. Snow White called it hell with windows. One of them, Tony Pizza, a.k.a. Sleepy, was a junkie, nodded off with a lit cigarette once and burned his thigh. Grumpy? That bastard used his fists to teach lessons. And Doc? He wasn't no doctor. He just knew how to stitch wounds that shouldn't have been made in the first place. They kept her there with threats and fairy tales. Run away and the wolves'll eat ya. The Queen's got your heart in a box. There's poison in the air. The scariest part? She believed them. For a while. Until the apple. One day a trader came through. A lady with iron-gray eyes and a basket full of fruit. She gave Snow White an apple, red as blood. Take a bite, sweet girl, for every girl who bit the dust before you. So she did. But it wasn't poison. It was a vision. She saw her mother, her real mother, not the witch who sold her, but a woman who fought and died in the Union riots. She saw chains broken. She saw fire. And she saw herself, not weak, not pale, but covered in ash and fury. When she woke up, she didn't scream. She sharpened a pickaxe. And one by one the dwarves stopped whistling while they worked. Now they say, in the Black Forest, there's a woman who leads the rebellion. Skin like marble, eyes like steel, hair blacker than night. They call her Snow White, but she ain't no fairy tale. She's a warning. And when she bites into an apple, the ground trembles. Moral of the story. Sometimes the princess doesn't need saving. She needs revenge. You can only trap innocence for so long before it wakes up angry. You chain up a girl, strip her name, her body, her will, and you think she won't bite back? That's your mistake. The bleeding apple ain't about fairy tales. It's about truth. Evil doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it wears overalls, runs a sweatshop, or hides behind sweet bedtime stories. The real moral? Don't romanticize captivity. Don't confuse survival for love. And never underestimate a girl with nothing left to lose. You keep feeding lies, someone's gonna feed you the sharp end of a pickaxe. For tales like this one, like and subscribe.